Alhamdulillah. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Today we will discuss about a very short topic but an interesting one. I have discussed this topic before, but I want to do this with some bit of more information so that our understanding is further enhanced. The previous recordings on this subject has been uploaded in my channel, in my previous channel. I'll give the links to those for you to sort of go through those again and benefit from that. So I'll focus more on the additional information this time, and it will be more from a philosophical perspective partly. There is obviously an element of the religious aspect to it, the understanding aspect to it. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ونزلنا عليك الكتاب تبيانا لكل شيء وهدى ورحمة وبشرى للمسلمين. This was a verse from Surah Nahl chapter 16 verse 89, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the interpretation of the meaning. We are not going into an elaborate discussion on the verse in question. Means that the Quran has the potential to explain everything. If the Quran is not able to do that, then we cannot claim scholarship for ourselves. Anyway, so the topic is very simple. It's what I call it moon sighting or moon fighting. What is it? What exactly is it? Because every year during the time of Ramadan, people seem to be awakened by this thing, and then there are various groups and various opinions, and people simply do not seem to come to a common understanding. So as I said, a common understanding is possible. Whether or not people are able to come to it, a true understanding is possible, and our effort is to explain that aspect. Normally so I have this screen in front of me. I am not showing that. I don't know how I'll do that, maybe in a separate upload. But as of now, I want this recording to be uploaded today itself. Today being 10th of March 2024. It's around 4 p.m. 16:12 in Kolkata, local time. And there is a reason. I'll explain the reason as well. To discuss about this topic, which I jokingly say moon sighting or moon fighting, what exactly is it? We will raise a question. Instead of trying to give an answer, we first raise a question. What exactly do we understand by a day? And what sort of question is even that? We all know what a day means, or do we really understand that from a fundamental point of view? So, today, for example, is Sunday. Now, what exactly is a Sunday? The counter question to what is Sunday? What do you mean by that? Yeah, it's Sunday, it's so obvious, or is it so obvious? So let's say a specific day in Makkah, in Saudi, is Friday. So India is on the eastern side of Saudi, Kolkata being a city in India. So in Kolkata, did Friday start a little bit earlier than Saudi in Makkah? It would seem to be that case, isn't it? Similarly, Egypt being on the western side of Saudi, so will Friday start a little later in Egypt than in Saudi? It would seem to be yes. Now follow through this pattern. You can open a Google Maps or something at your end to understand the flow of this discussion. So if we go from Saudi to India to say Malaysia or Singapore, further east, it would seem that Friday started even a little bit earlier than in India. We're talking about the rotation of the earth, and hence the start of the day, night, all those things we're discussing over here. And what about Australia then? What about Sydney? It would seem that Friday started even earlier in Australia, in Sydney, than in Singapore, and then in India, then in Saudi, then in Egypt. Well, fine. Let's go to the other side. What about Libya? So Friday will start a little bit later than Egypt, which was a little bit later than Saudi. Is that the case? It would seem to be the case. What about Algeria? A little bit later than Libya. What about, say, America, US? it would be a little bit later than Algeria. Not a little bit, quite a little bit, I mean quite a bit, because there's the Atlantic in between. But in any case, it's later than that. We stop over here. We go back to Sydney. Now, what about this Australia? Did Friday start in Australia, or did it start a little bit earlier in America? Because just like there's Atlantic on this side, there's a Pacific on the other side. So it would seem that in America, the Friday started earlier, but then you would say there's an international date line which divides the earth, which is correct. The international date line is at 180 degrees. We don't call it 180 degrees east or west. We call it 180 degrees from the Greenwich, meridian, or the prime meridian, which is considered to be 0 degrees, which is at London. And then we have 1 degree east, 2 degree east, 10 degrees, 100 degrees, 179 degree east, and then 180 degree. And on the other side, we have 1 degree west, 2 degree west, 10 degree west, 100 degree west, 179 degree west, and then 180 degree. The 180 degree coincides. So 180 degree on this side and the 180 degree on the side. Together it's 360 degrees. So you would say no, because of the international date line. So America, the Friday will be later than Algeria. And then the new day will start in Australia, Saturday. And the Saturday will take another 24 hours to come back to America. Fine. Your understanding and logic is fine. But what about, why is this international date line where it is? There is no answer to that. London, when the international date line, the Greenwich meridian was being fixed at 0 meridian, London was at its peak in terms of influence, in terms of its political influence and other influences. So it fixed its city as 0 degrees. And you can say this is a coincidence, and a convenient coincidence at that it so happened that 180 degrees was through the middle of the Pacific, where there is the least population. Had it been in any other populated area, it created much confusion. But because of this sort of, what I would say is a coincidental, convenient sort of setup, we have been following it, and it's quite fine. So far so good. What about the month, the lunar cycles then? The lunar cycle, now how's the month being tracked in a lunar cycle? So if the sun has set and the moon has set before that, so this does not mark the beginning of the new month in the lunar cycle. But if the sun has set and the moon is still above the horizon, it will set a little later in timeline. Then this marks the beginning of the new month in the lunar cycle. This is clear. And this is not so very difficult to understand for all of us. So then the moon set time gets delayed. The moon becomes brighter and brighter. It reaches full moon and then it wanes. And then it again becomes a faint line, and then it becomes a new moon again, almost in Bangla or Sanskrit or Hindi or some of the Indian languages. And then we have the hilal in Arabic, the crescent. So the new moon is actually, in English, it's a bit of misnomer, it's actually the no moon phase. And then the crescent is the thinnest visibility of moon that happens. Either the visibility, or you can also say the presence through astronomical calculations. Either way, that's okay. Now, so because of the sort of the structure of the earth and the rotation of the earth and the days and the nights, what's happening is, what exactly is Friday? What exactly is Friday? What is a day? We are coming back to the same question again. Now, why the international date line marks that? Why did not Friday start in America? There is no reason for that. That's why in the explanation you will find that the international date line is being termed as an arbitrary line. That's the definition. It's an arbitrary line. It's an altogether different matter that it happens to be at a convenient location where the population is sparse or non-existent, mostly through the Pacific. Anyway, but day and night cycle is one thing in the solar system, and the monthly cycle is a totally different thing in the lunar system. In the lunar system, I've explained how the new month begins, and then after around 29-30 days, another new month in the lunar cycle begins. So this year, because this confusion reaches its peak every year during the month of Ramadan. This year, when will the month of Ramadan start? When does it start? When should it start? Again, across the different countries, across the world, we will find different countries are initiating their Ramadan in different dates, which is absolutely from the scientific and the geographical point of view doesn't make any sense at all. It can start on two different dates according to the solar calendar because of the international dateline, but it cannot spread over more than any 24-hour stretch. That is not allowed, but that will definitely happen. That happens every year. This will happen again this year, but that's something totally wrong. To understand that, I have at my end open a site timeanddate.com. You can do that along with me, and if you search any city, I have done it for Kolkata as a base because I'm over here. You can try and check it in any other city. So when we check for today's date, 10th of March, we check the sunset time is 5:43 p.m. That is 17:43, and the moon set time is later than that, 17:48. So the moon is above the horizon when the sun has already set. So this marks the beginning of both the new moon and the crescent moon. Right? Yesterday this was not the case. Yesterday the sunset occurred at around about the same time, in fact exactly the same time, 5:43 p.m. But the moon had set at 16:42, which is 4:42. So the moon had already set by then. So it could not have been the beginning of a new lunar month. Could not have been. Now Kolkata is fine. Now what about the cities towards the east of Kolkata? When exactly did the moon get formed? It's an important discussion. So I have checked it, and you can check it too. I have checked it for cities such as Singapore, such as Sydney. So we are going towards east, right? And everywhere this is the case. But 10th of March marks the beginning of the new lunar month, the new moon and the crescent moon. The reason being, the sun has set in each of these cities. The local time could be different, but the moon had not set by that time. The moon is still above the horizon, and in every case, the moon will set after. Fine. Why can't we take it beyond the international dateline? We can, and we should. And if it were to start, if the moon is observable above the horizon for any city towards the east, and it's a spherical thing, the earth. So after Australia, the first country that we come across is America. And one of the major cities over there is Los Angeles on the western coast. So we are taking Los Angeles as a reference. The difference in ours, the movement of the sun, is gradual from Saudi to India to Singapore to Australia. It's a bit more not so gradual because the entire Pacific is there. But even then, it's not very drastic. It's gradual, but the timeline is little more than that, but not extreme. So because of that, and because of the international dateline, the date for which we have to check the moon is 9th of March, because there's 10th on this side and 9th on the other side of the international dateline. Los Angeles is 9th, Sydney is 10. The actual time difference is not that much. Because of the international dateline, the 24-hour cycle, Los Angeles will be 10 around 24 hours later. If not 24, around 23, 22, whatever. From Sydney to Los Angeles, whatever time that is. But then, So Los Angeles I checked for 9th of March. What did I find 9th of March is the moon has already set. The sun has not yet set. So when the sun set, the moon is not above the horizon. So 9th of March, which was just a few hours earlier compared to Sydney, the moon did not mark the beginning of the new month. Right? But on 10th of March, it does. Okay, so I hope you're able to understand. It's a bit more challenging just by speaking, but you can actually have a look at the sites and do what I'm trying to do or telling you to do. Go to timeanddate.com. There are 2 pages. You can open on separate tabs, one the sun calculator, one the moon calculator. You can enter the city and check the time. The monthly times are available and you can check that day wise. So whenever that happens, the moon, the month, the new month in the lunar cycle begins. Had Los Angeles, had we observed that 9th of March this year 2024, the moon was above the horizon, then that would have marked the beginning of the lunar month. Now, what does it all mean? Wherever the moon has been sighted for the first time in the longitudinal line from North Pole to South Pole, whenever that happens, everywhere to the west of it, because that time will be experienced later in a gradual manner towards the west. Everywhere to the west of it, the sighting is no more required, because the fact that the lunar month has started has already been established by the longitudinal line. So everywhere else, and that single witness should suffice. So this was a discussion about that. There is one more discussion which I have intermittently sort of discussed, and that is about, what do I say, about what exactly is a day now. Why this artificial line which demarcates on one side being a Sunday and the other side being a Saturday, and the Sunday, it will reach Sunday a full 24 hours, a little less than 24 hours later. Why is that? So what does a day even mean in this context? What does it even mean? What is the extent of that day? What is the extent of that Sunday or whatever day? That extent is a bit more tricky to understand, but even without that international dateline, we can make sense of that, and we will reintroduce the international dateline. We are not overruling that. That is the concept of Pangaea. Pangaea was a supercontinent, and after the continental drift, the continents got separated out. So in the Pangaea, the collective land mass, even if you look at the maps of the world today, you see it fits like a jigsaw puzzle. So when it was a supercontinent, sort of island continent if you may, or the ocean lake if you may, that way. So that supercontinent Pangaea, what was the extent from one side to the other? Maximum maybe around 6 hours or so. So that landmass, the entirety of it is experiencing a specific day, let's say a Sunday or a Friday or whatever day. The entire landmass experiences separately. A single day. And a full 24 hours later, it will experience the next day. And the extent of Pangaea, if you were to divide the ocean into two, roughly the international dateline would fall exactly where it is today. So as I said, it's sort of coincidence also and sort of convenient also that it is there where it is. So this was the other part of the discussion. Now the third part is what you would say that all of this discussion is rendered useless because you would bring to me a hadith statement from the Prophet ﷺ, which loosely translated in English, and I have the reference of the hadith in front of me and I'm reading it out in the English translation. We can go to the Arabic as well, but we will not do that. I have done that in previous discussions. So it's in Bukhari, hadith number 1900. Narrated Ibn Umar anhu, I heard Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying, when you see the crescent of the month of Ramadan, start fasting, and when you see the crescent of the month of Shawwal, stop fasting, and if the sky is overcast and you can't see it, then regard the month of Ramadan as of 30 days. This is the English translation, not the Arabic. And I've gone into great details in the other previous lecture. Not this year, I guess not even one of the previous years, around about the start of Ramadan, before the start of Ramadan, I had recorded that. So this is the English translation. This is not what the Arabic says. And the word used is ra'a, a derivative of the word ra'a, not basara. And you say, what does it even have to do with the discussion? We have the translation that's good enough for us. Not quite. There are three words which we want to discuss. I have discussed it before, but that discussion needs to be repeated, albeit in a brief manner, but it needs to be repeated. Basara, Nazara, and Ra'a. If three words exist in the Arabic language, then necessarily there has to be differences in the meaning. Basara would correspond to the word see, to see. Just as we hear, we have the terms hearing and listening, and we all understand the difference. So basara and nazara has the same sort of correlation. It's seeing and looking, right? That sort of a difference exists. Now basara means seeing, but the word is used as ra'a, not basara. And you would say, no, it is translated as to see or seeing, so it is seeing, even though it's not basara. No, that cannot be the case. That is my contention. That cannot be the case. Let's prove that from the Quran. I'll not prove that. I'll just give you a reference for that from the Quran, and you can go and check yourself. And the reference is Surah Sajda, chapter 32, verse number 9, where it says, Thumma sawwahu wa nafakha fihi min ruhihi wa ja'ala lakum as sama, that the hearing, wa al basara. And I'm deliberately breaking the words. I know it's lakumus samal absara. I'm deliberately breaking the words for our better understanding. So sama is hearing, absara is the sight. It's referring to the embryonic stage where Allah gives the hearing faculty to the embryo first and the sight faculty to the embryo a little later. And there are great discussions about this, about the scientific miracle. Look how accurate the Quran is. We're not going into that. So when it gives the faculty of sight, what is the word used? What is the derivative of the word? The derivative is basara and the word is absara. So that is the point I was trying to come to or raise. So that means to see or sight in the plain and simple understanding that we all understand. You can also cross-reference Surah Araf chapter 7, verse 179, where it's a beautiful verse actually. We will not go through the entire verse, we will go through this part. Lahum aynun la yubsiruna biha. And we have given them eyes, but they do not use it to see. The same basara, yubsiruna, they derive from basara, is used. So that is the important point that we are trying to make over here. Not ra, not nazara. And the word nazara is look. And so what exactly is the term ra'a now? The term ra'a does not mean, I should rather say, the simplest way to represent it is not to see. The best way to represent ra'a is to know, to understand, to have the knowledge thereof. Now the knowledge of the crescent moon can be through various mechanisms. It can be through sight, through seeing. It can be through naked eyesight. It can be through aided sight, through telescope, or it can be through astronomical calculations. So the scope of ra'a is already expanded, it's vast. So if you have the knowledge, that's okay. But was it translated in this manner? No, it wasn't. So that was not the translation, the rendering of the Arabic into English, justice was not done to the translation. So that's what I want to say. So now what we have is, we have this word which is used, which is ra'a. Now ra'a, does it necessitate sighting for the marking of the beginning of the month? No, it does not necessitate sighting. If we have the knowledge, that's good enough. I have explained this before. You can have a look at that talk as also. I'll give a link to that in the description to this video so that you can have that full series of lectures on Ramadan. So, in short, Basara, from where did I prove the meaning is saying? From the Quran itself, from other places in the Quran itself, I proved that. The word used in this specific hadith is Ra'a, not Basara. With this understanding, the moment someone, one of the countries, has the knowledge, in fact today it's not even dependent on one of the countries, it's the knowledge is there, the astronomical calculations is there with all of us. The moment we come to know that the formation of the moon has already happened, so the new moon is already there, the crescent is already there, then that itself marks the beginning. It can be at any place, but wherever on the first longitudinal line it happens first, all the places in the west, the month of Ramadan will necessarily have to follow. It cannot skip, and that becomes ridiculous, especially in India. We find in many years, both in Singapore and in Saudi, both the east and the west, they have been able to, they have marked the beginning of the month of Ramadan and they have started with the month of Ramadan, but India they give it a miss. For reasons best known to them only. So you would say the local moon sighting or the global moon sighting and all of those issues we've discussed at length in great details in previous lectures. We will not do that today. So our intention was to summarize what exactly is a day. So to the Pangea, the supercontinent and the continental drift has led to us. So hence the entirety of the landmass experience the same day at the same time. That is what we explained, how the lunar monthly cycle starts and ends. A bit of the nuance of Arabic in the hadith and cross-referencing through the Quran was also explained. So this was in short the video that I wanted to make today. So that's it for now. We'll probably have another video I'll see how I can make another video with the screenshots going on. If not, then you need to do some homework at your end, some work at your end, but I've explained the process how to go about it. Timeanddate.com works for us. That's the primary site, and then the others also have explained as we have gone along with this lecture. So we end this now. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.